The S&P rallied hard after an initial gap down, finally closing up 0.15% at 5569.06. The lows this morning were down over 2%, so a really nasty open. But today was month end, and is often the case, there is institutional rebalancing that sometimes adds an element of volatility. And we saw that today with the big gap down and the rally all the way back up to basically flat from yesterday's close. A couple of data points we were watching early this morning was all the volume that was coming in at 5,500. That was a signal that there was quite a bit of interest higher from this gap lower. We also saw quite a bit of volume coming in at the 5550 level as well. So we mentioned this in our live stream this morning, which, by the way, if you guys are interested in checking out, I'll put a link in the description below. Zooming out to a daily candlestick chart, we can see the largest gamma exposure concentration is at the 5570 strike. Most of this is going to be 0 DTE GEX that is rolling off today. As we mentioned, today was a big day for gamma exposure, being month-end rebalancing as well. In addition, we've been eyeing the gamma exposure, which is growing at the 6,000 strike. We continue to see big volume coming in at that strike in the options market every single day. Today, well over 50,000 contracts again at that far out of the money strike. The last several trading sessions have seen multiple resistance areas breached. Today, we actually came right up to the 50-day EMA. Same thing yesterday. So the last two candles, we have been bumping right up against the 50-day EMA, and it's possible we could see continued consolidation for a few trading sessions. But in terms of gamma exposure, as long as we maintain in a positive gamma exposure environment, we expect this rally to see a continuation leg higher.
Thanks, Anthony. I did want to take a quick look at the VIX and VVIX today. I have VVIX pulled up currently, and you can see over here to the right, the whole moving average has declined to the point where it's now below the current level for VVIX. And we'll look more at that on the VIX. But for VVIX, which is the index that measures the future expected volatility of the VIX itself, I just wanted to point out a divergence that at least once we've seen several occurrences in a row, has very good predictive value to anticipating future VIX spikes. So we have VVIX, which closed today with a red candle at 102.29. But if we take a look at the VIX, you can see that it closed with a green candle. So this technically qualifies as a divergence. And furthermore, even though VVIX has had 2 or 3 days closing above the whole moving average, which I like to use as a line in the sand for bullish versus bearish, you can see that the VIX just today closed above the whole for the first time since April 7. So definitely a noteworthy occurrence for the VIX to be closing back above this line. You know, the VIX can rise with the market for a period of time. So this isn't exclusively saying the market's going to crash tomorrow. And I think I agree with you, Anthony, about the indices having potential for some higher levels. But at least for now, we need to be on the watch out for some sort of a pullback and potentially a VIX spike to some higher levels. We've had that really sticky GEX at 42.5 that's been there for days and days. You know, that matches this upper Keltner channel at this point, but this may just mark a temporary drop in the market. So we'll be watching that.
Yeah, Sean, you mentioned the 42.5 gamma exposure concentration on the VIX, and we continue to see volume coming in at that level today too, over 40,000 contracts in the options market at that level, as well as at the 55 strike. So that's definitely something to watch. I mean, we've been highlighting this vol collapse here over the past 2 to 3 weeks, while noting that the gamma exposure at the 20 strike was growing to the downside, and that corresponds with vol sellers coming in hard. But we also want to keep an eye on any potential large-scale bounce for retesting some of these upper levels. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And that kind of segues into this chart of the Qs. This is the chart for the month of April. We're looking at 15-minute candles here, and we see we're coming up into a resistance level just under this 480 strike. 480 to 485 gamma exposure is growing to the upside. However, this resistance here needs to be broken first. So that's something that we're watching. That could correspond with a potential rejection and volatility spike. We're not quite out of the woods yet, even though on the S&P we've seen a few days of breaching resistance, but the Qs has not confirmed that same breach. So we want to make sure that we're covering all the major indices and index ETFs that we track. It's looking good on the Qs, I would say, from a gamma exposure perspective, but we do need to breach this resistance level around 480, which we have not done just yet.
Let's take a look at SMCI. This is a name that we get questions about quite often, so I know a lot of you watch it. And we actually brought this up in our daily live stream. We opened up today with SMCI in the green box. That's the lower dealer cluster zone on the 15-minute chart. It's interesting that this area, if we were to zoom out, and we will in just a second, but you could see that this is an area that's provided support for this stock for quite a while. And of course, leaving this big gap, but we have big gaps at 35 and also at 40. And 35, I think, is the target that I'm watching primarily. Not only is it a large upper dealer cluster zone, and we had good volume, which is the light blue horizontal bar to the right of the GEX cluster that you see. So I zoomed out so we could look at SMCI's daily chart. And this also has the whole moving average, which is the yellow line, and the blue line represents the middle Keltner channel. We still have this gap between the current price and that 35 level, which is the upper dealer cluster zone, and it's the convergence of what will now be, some form of resistance presented by the middle Keltner channel and the whole moving average. But we could draw a line through that 30 zone, really going back to February, and you can see that it's been a pretty important spot. Even though we saw a rally from when I first mentioned it, it's about $1.50 higher, but I still like the idea of this area being filled.
Thanks, Sean. Next, I just want to bring up a couple of points on Microsoft and Meta. Both of these names reporting earnings after hours. Let's start with Microsoft. Microsoft is up, trading at 417.34 currently after closing at 395.26. This is coming back into a previous support and resistance zone, and I think this is a really good look for mega caps overall as we're coming into this earnings season here. This is a juicy move higher for such a large mega cap company like Microsoft, and I think this is going to help our overall gamma exposure picture in the broader indices. Remember, we were talking about both the S&P and the Qs earlier, potentially breaching resistance, and we are just barely in positive gamma exposure territory. So big moves from big companies like this on earnings are net positive for the market overall. Let's switch over here to Meta. Meta also popping after hours, trading at 577.17. It closed at 549, so not quite as big of a pop, but still up nevertheless. This is also going to be a net positive for the market overall. So two names that we're watching into the open tomorrow. We'll see if these gains can hold. I think that's two really large wins for the broader indices. And just a heads up, today is the last day of our special promotion, $300 off our yearly portfolio manager tier subscription. Use code Easter 2025. We're ending this today. There are a couple spots left, so take advantage of that while you can. Members get access to our gamma exposure dashboard, our algorithmic trading strategies, as well as being able to track our portfolios in real time. You'll also get access to the premium channels in our Discord community. We've got a really vibrant community talking trade setups and strategy every single trading session. So you definitely don't want to miss that. Link in the description below. And I also wanted to point out that we just started our daily live stream at 10:30 Eastern. You can sign up right here on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to check that out. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.